Okay, hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, super fun. We got new coffee in. We're gonna be calling it Tiger Mountain, inspired from our latest trip to the Pacific Northwest. And there was a trail there called Tiger Mountain. And I was like, I've been working out. Please. Ethiopia, Guji. We had an Ethiopia last time. We're about to run out of it. So I thought to replace it with something that was a near second on my list in terms of flavor. But now we've got, you know, another natural on board. I love big fruity cups, so that's what we're gonna bring here. And I feel like this Ethio Guji, I've cupped it already before, but we're gonna go ahead and roast some today just to like wet our palates with it. And then I'm gonna cup it along with these awesome coffees that Mosaic Coffee gave to me. You didn't have to hook it up with this much, so I'm very appreciative. I just ran out of coffee, so this is perfect timing. Jewel from Mosaic Coffee from Bali. A dark roast, wow. I definitely don't have a lot of dark roast, so I'm happy to cup that for you guys today. Oh, and then we have another Ethiopia. So this is perfect. We're gonna, test our little production roast of this. We've never done a production roast of this Ethiopian Natural Guji. I'd like to know more on this, but I think if we were to scan this, we would bring up whatever this is, right? Cool, so we'll do that later during our cupping. Okay, so very exciting. We get started with the roasting part of it, and we'll see you in a minute. We need to come up with a little game plan. So here's the plan. It's a natural. What does Hesea recommend? If you go to Hesea's website, they actually will give you some really helpful roasting recommendations and give you kind of a clue. They won't exactly tell you how to roast it, but they'll definitely give you a clue as to like maybe go a little gentle, maybe don't take this past, a minute past your development phase or something like that, it's super helpful just because when you're charting course of a new coffee, you want kind of all the help you can get, right? Like most Ethiopians, keep this coffee light to medium. Nice lime acidity, notice a nice roast. Medium roast, the coffee becomes more cherub syrup. Great in any brew. Okay, a pretty standard coffee, easy roasting, nothing too crazy. Jared scored this at a 86.25, so 86 and a quarter, right? So fairly well, pretty tasty, interesting, good body, good balance, enough to be higher than average. 85, you would call that kind of like an average coffee. 86 is higher than average, so that's good. So here's my plan. How I approach a new coffee is to kind of look at, again, my past experience. What do we do 1,000 hands at? Which is a washed coffee, 360. I think it's safe, even though it's a high elevation coffee, it's natural. This was also harvested back in, I know it's an older coffee, as in it wasn't like harvested this year. So harvest was in January 2020. Yeah, almost 2 years later, I'm now roasting it, right? So that's something to also consider, as in like, okay, maybe this might move a little faster in that it's not the freshest coffee, which that's not a bad thing, but that's just information that you need to know when you're going to the roaster and being like, whoa, this guy's moving fast. Yeah, maybe it's a little older, maybe than your fresher coffees, right? And that's why it's moving a little fast. It's not a deal breaker. These are all observations. Let us make a plan. So we're gonna call this guy Tiger Mountain. We're gonna do a 350 charge to start. Okay, on the first one, we'll see how this guy goes. From there, I always just like to do a second one to see if I can immediately correct anything that I see at the roast. Again, we're not making any like concrete judgments, but it'll be nice to have 2 production roasts, take it to the cupping table. We're gonna wait 2 days, it's a natural. We're gonna wait 2 days to cup them actually, before we actually cup this guy. So we can probably wait just another 2 days to cup this as well. It's already bagged up. And then do that whole thing. Because we have a nice Ethiopia from Mosaic Coffee that we can also, in contrast, put up here. And if we had some, I'd love to put 1,000 hands up against this and see how that fares. So maybe I'll do a quick little sample roast of our 1,000 hands. I have a little bit left. And then we'll have an African cupping. Won't that be cool? Let's get to it. Here's the plan. 350, we're gonna see how it roasts. We're gonna do the the Trevor thing from Sabbath Coffee and just like see what the coffee wants to do. And then from there we'll be like, okay, let's see if we can modulate with that second production batch. All right, let's do it. I'm excited. I'll share for you guys and I'll show you. We'll chime in back here, maybe in the office, chime in back here and talk about these two roasts. Other than that, we'll get to it. I'm not gonna bring the camera out there. A little too much trouble for me right now. All right, see you in a bit. Well, we're back. Woo, it is getting really hot. So here they are, two batches. Let's talk about it. Throw it up on the screen. This was interesting. Okay, so the first one, now granted, the first roast on any roaster is always gonna be like the most wonkiest, most unreliable, right? And that kind of sucks if like you're trying to figure out a coffee. It's always just gonna be, you know, we'll call it first roast blues, okay? Because that's just what happens. You notice like the first roast on your roaster is just not that, it's not up and running yet. It's not warmed up yet. It's not in its groove yet, okay? So here it is. Now this is interesting, right? I kind of just tried to let the coffee do its thing and like, I didn't try to do anything to it. I was like, okay, you're gonna hit a long, you know, crack or whatever it is. I'm just trying to pay attention. At least that's what I'm trying to do what Trevor, you know, explained to me. So here we go. We've got a 46 first phase, 42 second phase, 12% last phase. So, you know, Hasea recommends you to keep this guy light or else you lose the lime notes. Let's see if we can pick up the lime notes in 2 days. We had a little dip here approaching first crack. I was kind of like, you know, what should I do here? And the interesting thing here was that, you know, Dev asked about drum speed. Well, I had to like play with that today. You know, I don't often do it, but I was like, hey, like this coffee is kind of like taking off on me. So a little too early, like my first signal was I got an outlier crack at like 6 minutes 10, something like that. And I was like, ooh, this is running too quickly. And, you know, like I said, like, okay, it's older coffee. I mean, harvested like almost 2 years ago. It's a natural coffee, right? So it's absorbing a lot of heat very quickly. So I don't want it to do that. So I didn't want to change my fuel. It was already pretty low, but I still needed energy to continue the roast. I didn't want to touch my fan because I don't need to touch my fan. I'll keep that pretty standard too. So I was like, well, the last thing I can kind of play with, and it's already taken off on me, you know, is a mismanagement of heat in the beginning of the second phase, was to just crank up the drum speed. Not every roaster can do that. And that's the beauty of a Mill City roaster. Yeah, you got a lot more things to control, which could be like overwhelming for people. But at the end, like when you want total control, you got it. So I was messing with the drum speed there. And so I was able to elongate that middle phase, and maybe a bit too much, because take a look here, 4 minutes 28 out of the total roast, only 42% out of the total roast. Not bad, you know. I expect this to sort of hopefully develop the bean very well. So let's just take a look. We can even cross-section it if we wanted to. We can chomp on it if we wanted to. The end color was very light. What else? There's still a lot of like kind of ridges in the coffee that you would find in a typical light roast. Maybe a lot more than I'm used to seeing. So we cut this little bean in half. See the inside? I don't know. Doesn't seem too even to me. I wonder how like even can you really get? You know, maybe this coffee deserves soaking. You know, I've kind of revisited the idea of soaking and when to do it and when it's appropriate. And maybe for this type of coffee that, you know, it's a high elevation coffee. At the same time, it's a natural. It's also older. So maybe it needs that extra help of buffering all of this energy coming at it, you know? And I'm only saying that because to me, this doesn't look very even in terms of did this roast evenly, right? If we're looking at a roast that we want it to be, you know, fully developed and not underdeveloped and not overdeveloped for sure, but just not underdeveloped, even though we have pretty much a long middle phase for what I would kind of like to see on paper for a light roast and for my, you know, my profile. I don't know, we haven't cupped it yet. That's just something to kind of make note of. This would warrant another roast. It's not on the site yet because why? I haven't nailed it yet. I'm not confident yet. So that's the work that we're going to put in here. And hopefully we get to do it before I take off again. It's a very busy month. Haven't had much time to roast, but you know, we make time where we can. Okay, and then that last phase, I was like, I don't think I'm going to finish it, you know, under 10% like say Mr. Pablo or Pioneer, because I don't know if that's warranted yet, right? We want to just see what the coffee wants to do. I'm looking at the coffee, and that's when I'm deciding to drop it because of the look of it. So if we take some and just kind of look at it, you know, we've got some cracks like on the side, so that's telling me a little too much heat, a little bit. But we haven't tipped it, we haven't scorched it, we haven't faced it, so maybe that's okay. Sometimes I get that. I'm an aggressive sort of style of roaster, so I get those little cracks sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's not good, okay? These are all just observations. We've got to cup it, and we've got to wait 2 whole days because it's a natural, and we want to give it its time to sort of like off gas and whatnot. But generally, the color looks like a light. We can even grind some really quickly and just kind of see what this looks like. And a great, you know, exercise to do if you're at home and you want to see kind of like, and you have like 2 comparisons, you want to figure it out. Okay. Sample 1, sample 2, or attempt 1, attempt 2. Pretty dang close. It's hard to tell, like, you know, on the camera, but if you make them touch a little bit at the end there, you maybe can tell a little color difference. Wow. I mean, just because of shadow, this looks darker and this looks lighter, but let's just turn it, give it another look by. Okay, to me, okay, this one looks a smidge lighter. Smidge. A smidge. And this looks a little bit darker. Interesting. Now, if you look at my first roast, put that up, longer than middle phase than I wanted to. So what did I decide to do without cupping it? Just going like, okay, what can I do on this second attempt to change? That way when I go to cup, I can see which one is better and still refine it from there. We're not saying, hey, this is the definitive. We're saying which one is better. And then go again, run another experiment. Do we need a soak, right? Do we need another experiment? I still kept the 350 charge temp. I think that's good for this natural. I think it's dealing with a lot of heat already. It's kind of figuring out what's going on in the middle phase. It tends to sort of stall in a way. You know, I wanted to really make the middle phase shorter in this second attempt, but here we go. Look what happened. So hit dry end at 445, 300 degrees. First cracked at 923. Yeah, so still kind of a little bit later than I wanted to. Actually later than the first attempt. But we're roasting it at a more aggressive rate. And the machine is warmed up. You know, it's the second roast on it, so it's not, you know, having any weird wonky temperature holding issues. It's not the first roast out of the gate. It's not the first roast blues, okay? So I got like, my plan to adjust was to tighten up the middle and maybe drop a little bit sooner. I was able to do that based on, you know, just looking at it, and I was like, you know, I think I want a little bit more development in the end, like totally for the bean, but then I want to roast it aggressively, meaning I want to give it a little bit more heat during this time and see if I can tighten up some of these phases. And I did by 1%. So I had a loss of 13.6 in the first attempt, and then a loss of 13.5, a 0.1% better, and I will take it, okay? So it ended with a higher temperature. Okay, so maybe more development, more roastiness, I don't know. Versus the first attempt, had a 380 degree final temp. So 4 degrees, it does make a difference, or so we will find out. Yeah, we tightened up the last phase. This curve looks really reminiscent of like what my profiles look like, so something a little bit more aggressive, really tight last phase, but that middle phase is quite long, right? I'd say 38 seconds too long. And this may give me some very kind of roasty elements where I've eliminated the nuance, and I'll need to find out how I can retain it. Looking at it right now, that's my guess. That's my guess. I've maybe eliminated the nuance with such a long middle phase, but I don't know. And if that is the case, if this middle phase is too long, I'm going to try a soak next time. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, something like that. Okay? Depends. We're going to have to try it. We're going to have to experiment. We're going to have to take notes, and we're going to have to cup it. Okay, cool. That was fun. So, thanks for hanging out with me in this really fun trying to find out how to roast something. But we will find it, and when it's ready, it will be called Tiger Mountain, and it'll be on the site. I expect we'll nail this in a week or two, maybe sooner, you know. I like to figure out the puzzles as soon as I can. Yeah, this is definitely very interesting. Very interested to cup, and we will be back here with Mosaic Coffee as well. All right, good things. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.